You walk in or you're at a family celebration, and regardless of how much you eat, somebody's just gonna be there going at you like, kain ka pa, kain ka pa, kain ka pa. Like literally, that's my experience living in the Philippines. Hi mga kabano, it's Chris here, and I'm telling you the story of Filipino food online with our channel today. And today's subject, of course, is Filipino food habits and quirks that you may not be familiar with. Filipinos are a very giving food culture. They always want to make sure that yung kapitbahay nila, yung friend nila is also eating food, right? So it's a very generous culture. Even if it's a total stranger, you're not at a family celebration, you're just walking along, you see somebody eating, they're gonna be like, kain? They're gonna invite you to eat their food. And of course, they're secretly hoping that you're not gonna walk up and be like, yeah, I don't know you, but thanks for the chicken, mate. They're secretly hoping you say, no, busog pa ako. Like, I'm actually already full, or sige, ikaw muna. Something like that. That's what you're hoping they'll say. But culturally, you have to offer, even if it's a total stranger, you have to offer to share your food with them. And the last example, of course, is then you have like the jahe piece. And there was a really cool song about this, I believe. Mikey Bustos did this. This is about when there's one piece of food remaining and Filipinos will literally fight each other before eating the last piece. Now this one's great for me because bilang isang dayuhan, wala akong pakialam tungkol sa jahe piece. Kain lang ako. I just take the jahe piece. Yeah, I said it. I love taking the jahe piece. I'm like, this is fantastic. It's like they're leaving one piece for whoever has the least shame, and that's me. Bang, eat the jahe piece. But the idea is, it's like everybody's too polite to want to take the jahe piece. So they'll say to each other like, you know, kunin nyo na, nagkahiyan pa ako. You take it, you have it. And then I'm like, yep. So some examples of this sort of Filipino givingness when it comes to food is like you walk in or you're at a family celebration, and regardless of how much you eat, somebody's just gonna be there going at you like, kain ka pa, kain ka pa, kain ka pa. Like literally, that's my experience living in the Philippines. It's not quite like CIA waterboarding equivalent, but it's like one step removed from literally having it rammed down your throat, which is great, but sometimes you're just like, sobra na, okay, I've got to leave the room. That's this kind of tradition that the Philippines is when it comes to food. And today I'm going to bring my top 5 Filipino quirky food habits and traditions for you guys. So the first one that we're going to talk about today is the tradition of kamayan. Now, kamayan comes from the word kamay, meaning your hand, and kamayan is the practice of eating food with your hand. And I love kamayan. I think some of you guys would know that I spent a lot of time growing up in Indonesia where we also practice kamayan, and I think it makes the food taste better, and most Filipinos agree it makes the food taste better. Now, from a scientific or chemical basis, I don't think you could say the food literally tastes better, but I think it's something about your ability to like better craft the perfect morsel at the time from your ulam, the perfect amount of rice, sauce, the nice bit of fish, whatever, and get it all in one go and get it into your mouth. So I think you have more control maybe than using utensils. The technique that I was always taught, right, is to ball up your food a little bit, bowl up your rice, get some sauce on it, and then you have like your ball here, and then your thumb is like the shovel, and you do this bang with the thumb, and that's just gonna push the food into your mouth. So that's the technique. If anyone watching, especially sa Estados Unidos, who is used to only eating with fork and spoon, you might want to try this at home. Now, this is obviously an ancient tradition that stemmed back to before utensils were widely available. And in the Philippines, it does sometimes can be seen as denoting somebody's socioeconomic status. For example, very wealthy people would rarely be seen engaging in kamayan, and it's something that you would see a lot more in the province. I practice kamayan all the time. In fact, I'm often the only person at the table of Filipino people who is doing kamayan, because I just think it makes so much more sense with a lot of Filipino ulam, especially if there's a bone and you're trying to get all the delicious bits. It's so much easier. So I'm a kamayan guy. I'm not embarrassed about it. I don't care. It's just easier. So try kamayan out if you haven't already. So the next interesting quirk about Filipino food habits is this idea of your meal is completed at the table through the addition of sausawan or dipping sauces. So if you're in a place like France and they bring out a plate of food, they put it in front of you, and then you go and like put some sauce on it, that can actually be seen as an insult to the chef or whoever prepared the meal, because they would say that, oh, you didn't like the taste that I cooked that with. But dito sa Pilipinas, actually the food is a lot more flexible, the food identity and people's tastes and palates. So what you do here is you have your salsa on the table, so maybe your toyo mansi or your liver sauce if you're having lechon, or just a simple spiced vinegar. The idea idea with that is that you actually complete the meal according to your own taste. So you get to customize the meal right at the time of eating it, with the addition of more sour, more sweet, more saltiness, in the case of say patis or calamansi for the sour. And that gives you a much greater flexibility in how you eat, and the ability for everybody at the table to get the perfect flavor for them, which is actually a really cool part of Philippine cooking. I mean, this is more customizable than a lot of the Western tradition, where it's like, I made a pot of stew, I'm putting it in a bowl for you. If you don't like it, that's it, not changing it. And your only options really is just the addition of salt and pepper when you're in a Western culinary tradition. So that one is really interesting. We'll put up a list here to the various sausawan that I've made, so you can actually go and look at the range of Filipino sausawan that's out there and which ones work with what types of food and so on, so you can get the perfect bite every time. Number 3 on my list of interesting Filipino food habits is those food combinations that Filipinos like to do, where they take two things that individually taste pretty good, but together you'd never think to eat them. But then Filipinos do eat them together and somehow it works. So some examples of that would be like champorado and toyo, which is chocolate rice porridge with dried salted fish. Sounds delicious. Is delicious. You have things like unripe green mango with fermented shrimp paste, manga at bagoong, which is also sounds really unusual, but actually kind of comes together and works and gives this nice salty sour effect. So this is something that Filipinos are really widely known for. So this is a cuisine of great contradiction and great experimentation, which, if you really understand the history of Filipino food and how it evolved, stems from literally being impacted from all corners of the world, from Western Europe, from Central America, from China, from the Malay Peninsula, from India, from North America more recently. And that has meant that it's just had such a vast array of different culinary influences that's kind of been banged together in the Philippines, that I think this just doesn't feel weird at all to Filipinos that you would pair stuff like that the way it does for countries with a much more homogenous culinary tradition. So I think it's actually a really cool part of eating in the Philippines. And if you want to check out more weird and wacky Filipino food combinations, we got a video on that. All right, so the next Filipino food habit is the eat all you can table. There's no courses in Filipino dining. There's no rules in Filipino dining. You put everything out on the table and people just eat it in whatever order they want. In Western culinary tradition, you'll normally have like a very clear course. This is the appetizer, and then this is the main course, which is typically always going to be something like savory, and then you go to your sweet course afterwards. That's very structured and regimented, and that's what I grew up with. So this was one of the most confronting things for me coming to the Philippines. How do you guys do this? It's absolutely mind-boggling to your taste palate if you're a foreigner and you try that out and you've not done that before. But for Filipinos, that's very, very normal. And it makes things like wine pairing notoriously difficult, because normally when you have wine that's been paired to like a particular dish, but this is a food culture where there are no rules, there's no order to eating. So how on earth do you choose a wine to match a table that will have fresh fruit and mango? Like you'll have suha, you'll have jackfruit, you'll have savory, you'll have leche flan or brazo de mercedes or something like this on the table, and then it's like you need to put out 12 different wines to pair to it, and you have to have 12 glasses because every time they change dish you need a different wine for it. So I think that's one of the issues Filipinos have with learning how to enjoy wine as well, which is an interesting consequence from this really eclectic food culture that we've got here. So that all you can eat table, that's normally served in a home setting. Having a buffet in the Philippines is like a surefire way to lose money, because Filipinos are just gonna smash your buffet, take all the high value items. There's not many successful buffets here. There are one or two, but it's a tough game. I would not want to be a buffet restaurant owner. So commercially what you see is what we call turo-turo. So that's where you go into a Filipino carinderia, and instead of eat all you can from a table, there's some like portion control there, but still offers an eclectic range. So they'll have like 10 different things to choose from, and you just point at what you want and they're going to give you one serve of that. But it's all on the same plate, it's all mixed together, the sauces are all running together and mingling, so something more sour with something more savory, and they just all mix and come together. And the last one on my list today is, of course, Boodle Fight. I think this is starting to get a bit more known around the world, but this is the concept of you get a long banana leaf and then you're just gonna like lay a bunch of rice on that. And then you're gonna put some ulam around it. And this is something that everybody can just grab at. It's a communal plate and it's Kamayan style. So some people will probably argue with the hygiene aspects of that, of literally eating from the same communal plate with your hands. But this is a food tradition that stemmed with the Philippine Military Academy, and it symbolizes brotherhood and equality between soldiers. So this is widely practiced by Filipino military units in the province. And I have personally experienced that myself, where I've joined a group and we have eaten Kamayan style in the jungle off a banana leaf with the troops. And it doesn't matter whether you're the officer or the private, everybody is the same when it comes to Boodle Fight. Everybody eats off the same plate. Now, of course, this sort of military experience has been taken and adapted to civilian dining experiences as well. So you're starting to see more Boodle Fight in fiestas in the Philippines. And it's also becoming a bit of a novelty dining experience. I'm aware now in NYC that you can get Boodle Fight experience, one of the Filipino restaurants there where they'll lay that out. And I think for, you know, New Yorkers, that's a real interesting thing in one of the world's most cosmopolitan cities to be able to have like a Filipino Boodle Fight. Hey, New Yorkers, you can come here and sort of do that for about a 1/100th of the price here in the Philippines, right? Or make your own in the province here. And people do see it as a really cool bonding experience between a group. So the food that's going to be served on a Boodle Fight, the only thing that's compulsory really is the rice, but you would typically do things that are grilled. Remember, you're typically eating this in quite a primitive setting, right? You're in the jungle, so you probably don't have caldero and lots of different things to make sauces. So Boodle Fight is most often done with things that can be very easily cooked over fire or in a fairly raw form or simple steaming only. So think like grilled pork chops or grilled fish or smoked fish that's just been brought and added to the Boodle Fight. It might be sort of some seaweed or simple green vegetables like kangkong, maybe lightly steamed, maybe not. Things like itlog na maalat, which obviously you can carry those. It's a salted egg, so that's preserved, has a long shelf life. You just crack them open, add them, right? So it's fairly simple fare, which is consistent with the origins of how Boodle Fight came to being prepared in fairly simplistic kitchens or no kitchen at all. So if you haven't done a Boodle Fight in your life, this definitely should be on your bucket list, whether you're in the Philippines or not in the Philippines. So mga kabano, what did you think about today's top 5 Filipino food habits that you need to be aware of? Please leave a comment below with anything that I missed or anything that you do that's really interesting or quirky as a Filipino, or that you've observed here in the Philippines bilang isang dayuhan that you think is a little bit unusual. I love to hear from you. I read every single comment you guys put below. And remember, Filipino food is all about sharing, and so is YouTube. So remember to share this video with our kababayans abroad. Let's have this conversation about Filipino food and what it means to be a Filipino chef and a Filipino eater or diner or a Filipino family. I'm Chris Urbano. I will see you guys all next time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out our Facebook page as well. I'd love to keep in touch with you guys there. Bye now.